G'day guys, goeiedag, my name is Wildkard. URC Semifinal, Leinster versus the Stormers. What can I say? What can I say, guys? You know, on one hand, I was a little bit excited to see Sam Prendergast play. On the other hand, I was not happy that, Sasha was injured and got landed on his ankle, I think last game or the game before. But yeah, turns out the difference in terms of playmaker is the result. And obviously the playmaker on the Leinster side I'm talking about, it's not Prendergast, it's Gibson Park. Jameson Gibson Park is the one that really spiced things up for the Leinster side, whereas the Stormers didn't really quite had anyone that same caliber of Sasha to be able to just create something out of nothing, play some heads-up rugby, essentially. But I have to say, Damien Willemse did everything he possibly could to step up for the team. Like, I reckon his run meters, and he's like, I don't have any stats here, but you can let me know that his run meters and the number of times that he got involved with the ball, the way that he's able to slide into the back line and attack, sometimes at 10, sometimes at 12, sometimes at 13. Just really, really incredible how much work that is put in, whilst also sweeping back as the 15, jersey that he's wearing to cover a lot of the kicking game. Just absolutely like work rate all around the park for Damien Willemse there. But unfortunately, it's just not enough. Oh, by the way, is he wearing an advertising on his right arm, left arm? He looked like he's wearing a sleeve, just one arm, and on the sleeve is like a Red Bull ad. Is that what he's doing? Is he just selling ads on his arms? He's missing. Someone needs to buy the other arm, right? But anyway, I thought it was interesting how he's just got one arm with a sleeve on. But yeah, it's if you look on the other side, on the Leinster side, the playmaker Sam Prendergast supposedly I'm really disappointed with him once again. Last time I saw him, I can't remember which team that he played. I think it might be one of the games. I can't remember which team it was, but he just got demolished defensively. This game they did hide his defensive problems a lot better by moving him, basically dropping him back for a lot of the kicking game. And luckily for Leinster, they didn't really have to defend too much against the try line. So Prendergast's defense wasn't really tested too much this game, which I think is a big win for Leinster, right? You wanted to minimize your weakness, and really emphasize on your strengths. But when it comes to strengths, I did notice there's a bit of a conflict in terms of style between Prendergast and Gibson Park. Now, Gibson Park, obviously a proud Kiwi man himself. He has, if you watch a lot of Super Rugby, you'll know this. He has that Kiwi rugby instinct in his DNA. It's built into his blood, right? And the instinct is basically spotting the chaos that's in front of him and play heads-up rugby, and then just exploiting the opportunity in front of him with quick decision-making. And the Kiwis in Australia, if you watch Super Rugby, do this a lot and really successfully. And a lot of the tries in Super Rugby that you will see is the result of counter-attacking from a quick turnover or from a poor kick or something like that, and just players being able to spot what's in front of them and quickly responding to that to that problem. You can see Gibson Park has that instinct, but not everyone else in his team has it. In fact, pretty much no one else has it. And as a result, you have two style of kind of rugby on the field there for Leinster, right? You got Gibson Park, who's more interested in a fast, quick, chaotic, almost like a chaotic style of rugby out of the nine. And then you got Prendergast, who's, in my opinion, probably being drilled by his coaches to do exactly what the spreadsheet tells him to do. And he's basically slowing down the game, whilst Gibson Park is spotting the opportunity and trying to sweep the game up. And there lies a conflict, right? Either Prendergast hesitates and slows the game down and loses the opportunity, or Prendergast is left out of the play altogether, and he's just left at the back line. You can see it sometimes, not really sure what to do, not organizing it, and just kind of let the players, do what Gibson Park is telling them to do, and he's just kind of left loss, and sometimes it's like, all right, I might just go and do a clean out here, and you're the 10, and there's like a pod, and he's going into the pod to clean out. You're like, you shouldn't be doing that, mate. Like that's not, I know Gibson Park is running the play here, but you shouldn't be doing that. But yeah, it's stuff like that that is an issue, and I'm a it's one of the things that was so promising from Prendergast was he had so much like talent. He had that fearless factor about him where he can just take the ball and kick it across field and spot something at like almost had that spontaneity that Gibson Park has, and it's almost looks like to me that's been drilled out of him quite a bit from the coaching staff. So that's what I feel like. Let me know your thoughts if you're an Irish fan. Now for the Stormers, this was a pretty like grindy style of rugby. The Leinster team, their 4-pack, always has a pretty like really strong, always a solid defensively, and just they play the same style as the Irish national team. Just ran at you with the big 4-packs, and then ran all at you with their big centers, and hopefully they will belt you over for a try. And Stormers did really, really good to defend this, but with not really able to mount anything in their own attack. There was a bunch of penalties being kicked, due to the stalemate. Neither team was able to consistently build any momentum. But ultimately, it was the penalties and yellow cards, 2 yellow cards and a red card that I think hurt the Stormers more than anything else. The red card was the Ruin Ackerman, just shoulder charge clean out. That was 100% a red. The 2 yellow cards was a little bit interesting because the first one, Leonin Zas, this was a deliberate knock on, yes, but what I thought was a little bit interesting is he was in the position to catch the ball. Like he reached out to try to catch the ball, and then he pulled back, and then he kind of just knocked the ball forward instead. And I thought if he actually committed to just catch the ball and then knocked it on, he wouldn't been sent off because that would have been he was definitely in a position to make a genuine attempt to catch the ball. In fact, he had both hands out, and then he pulled back, and as a result of him pulling back, it ended up being a deliberate knock on. So I thought that was a bit of poor, like just a bit of poorly play from his part, and he could have avoided that. The Mora one was a bit controversial because I do think that Gibson Park, knowing how good he is, world class number 9 by the way, saw his leg flying up in the air and threw the ball into it. That's my opinion. I know he doesn't. I know if you're an Irish fan, you're gonna say that's not the case. Let me tell you, Gibson Park, 250 IQ, and I guarantee you he did it on purpose. Or if it wasn't on purpose, if he saw that, he would have done it on purpose. And if that was actually an accident, maybe, right? You could say that's this one in particular is an accident, maybe. But if he actually given an opportunity, he would have done it, right? But if I was bet on it, I reckon he did it on purpose there, and then only for him to follow that through for a try. So Morat got a bit because of the way the Morat was. Because you can say that Morat stuck his foot up deliberately, but it did look like Morat, not like the position of the Morat. He's got his back turned towards Gibson Park, and to fling up his leg like that, even though yes, the referee's rights are natural, he can't actually see where Gibson Park is. So for him to somehow flung his foot up and then knock the ball off, out of the hand of, intercept the ball in midair with his foot, I genuinely don't think he can do that with his back turned against the ball carrier. Okay. So that's why I think Gibson Park most likely did it on purpose, right? He may not, you might say, oh, he's just an accident. You might say it's no accident, whatever, but I think he did it on purpose, knowing that how smart and good he actually is at the game of rugby. And now there was also some interesting interpretations, in my opinion, in the scrummaging. First of all, you have to understand, Australia and New Zealand have some of the best referees in the world, and will be heavily involved in the in international test refereeing. We've got Ben O'Keefe, we've got James Dolman, Ben O'Keefe. Sometimes we even get for Australian side we've got Nick Berry, we've got Angus Gardner, and then we've got some of the lower level ones also gets involved in some of the test matches, like Paul Williams and stuff gets involved test matches as well. Let me tell you guys one thing: the scrums that I saw tonight, especially for some of the penalties the Stormers got when they bored in from the Leinster side with the what's his name? Let's have a look at the name of the players, because I think it was Nchunu but I don't know if it was Nchunu in the second half. Let's have a look at the players' names. I'm pretty sure. No, this guy, Matongo, right? Um, Let me tell you, even Mchunu, the way that they board in from the Lusair side, you're not gonna get a penalty call from any of the referees in New Zealand or Australia. I can guarantee you right now. Even the law states that both sides has to go forward. Some the boring in that I saw, especially in the second half, from what's his name, from Matongo, didn't go forward at all, and it just kind of just went sideways and popped out. The whoever at the I think guy, like Clarkson on the tight hair side. That in itself, I think even some of the English referees, like Carl Dixon, you probably wouldn't even, like Luke Pierce or something, you wouldn't even get that. Like, just you will get even penalized for boring in, right? The best you could hope for is not get a penalty at all because you wheeled the scrum on the spot, and some of them actually moved forward a little bit and then wheeled. Let me tell you, none of the referees in New Zealand and Australia would have given that. You have to go forward significantly before the wheel comes in. The wheel has to come in like much later than it has to be like very cleared, like forward, and then the wheel comes in. Whereas what we saw is like the kind of start wheeling and then you go forward a little bit, and the referee, what's her name, called it a penalty for the Stormers, which I just tell you guys right now, you're not gonna get that if you get a Aussie or a New Zealand referee. So, and I do think that the call is a little bit too loose there. She was super tight on referees, some of the calls as well. Gave it a penalty immediately. It was not willing to reset the scrum, or that or that very often, which I do like. I don't think the referee is out there to coach you how to do a scrum. If you don't do it right, immediately should win a penalty or a short arm. But yeah, some of the beginning, I do like the way that she defined that the Leinster side wasn't taking the hit, and we sometimes see teams do this after the hit. They're not taking it. They just kind of like crumbles, whether it be from the hit or they just deliberately falling under the hit. And I think she made that really clear that you have to hold the hit. Something that people have, there's a bit of a discussion about it. Like, are they pushing early or are they not? Is it because Stormers are actually pushing early, or is it because Leinster's not taking the hit and she's determined that Leinster isn't taking the hit? There's also a lot of movement in the scrum. Like, there's a lot of up and down instability in the scrum, and I just don't think that is good technique from both teams. I understand it's a bit of a wrestle. You try to get a bit of angle in your opposition, especially before the ball come in. I think the referee could have probably penalized that a little bit right away, and maybe that's what leads her to giving out some of these claps as well. There was an interesting interpretation from the referee, which I have to quote because I think it's something that I've never heard before from the referee. So there was one point where the Stormers player was asking her to check for a croc roll, and she literally defined croc roll. Holly Davison, sorry, that's her name, Holly Davison. She literally defined croc roll as a roll and landing on the lower limb backwards. So something like that. All right. So there was a so it's not just the roll that's the penalty, but she specifically added the condition that you have to land it on someone's lower limb, land it on someone's leg for a croc roll to be a thing, to be a penalty, which I don't think that's correct. I think pretty sure if you roll someone, it's especially if you by the neck or whatever, it's not allowed. But then again, sometimes players kind of push people to the side, drag people off to the side, not really like a half roll sort of thing. So yeah, it's interesting, but at least that lower limb targeting is a thing that I don't know if that's going to be the thing going forward for all the referees, but that's something that I think we all can watch out for. If the landing or the lower limb, it's going to be one of the determinant factors for a croc roll to be penalizable or not. We'll have to look out for that in the future. So, with that being said, yeah, ultimately, I think that without Sasha, Gibson Park was the playmaker and was able to, in a game of stalemate, both teams weren't able to. I do think that there was too many mistakes, to be honest with you, too many mistakes from both teams, and maybe I'm just too used to watching New Zealand rugby. The amount of knock-ons, just handling errors, and yeah, you don't see that many from New Zealand rugby. And I'm a little bit surprised on how sloppy both teams were performing in a big match like this. So let me know your thoughts on that one there. Let's do the match stats of the game. 20 points to 11, final score, 2 tries to 1, 66% possession for Leinster, 34 for the Stormers. We got 468 run meters for Leinster, 296 for the Stormers. Like so much more run meters there. 13 line breaks to 5 and 27 defenders beaten to 15 on the Leinster side. And then you can see with so much like dominance and post contact, the defenders beaten. Leinster it should have been able to put more points on, but they weren't because of just silly just like handling errors left and right. 67% territory, 33% for Leinster, especially considering you're playing against 13 players at one point, right? Last 10 minutes. Yeah. Anyway, 104 tackles, 50 missed tackles for Leinster, 234 tackles, and 27 missed tackles for the Stormers. 75% success rate for Leinster, 82% for Stormers. Actually, higher completion rate for the Stormers. Turnovers conceded. I don't know how these. Anyway, moving on. I don't know how to interpret this. I don't know the turnover won and turnover lost. I don't know why these are not the same numbers. But anyway, we're gonna move on. 31 kicks in play for Leinster. 30 for the Stormers. 100% success. Kick meter 799 for Leinster. 818 for Stormers. Pretty similar there. 13 lineouts for Leinster, 1 loss. 9 lineouts for Stormers, 3 loss. That is pretty horrendous. 4 scrum for Leinster, there was 1 loss. 4 scrum for Stormers, no loss. Definitely a bit more dominance there. 2 yellow cards and 1 red card against the Stormers. 7 penalties conceded overall for Leinster and 11 for Stormers. So yeah, the cards really hurt them quite a bit. And 4 scrum penalty offenses for not penalty but just short arm as well for against Leinster, 2 against the Stormers. So if you are the Bulls, you will look at the scrummaging for the Leinster side and really licking your chops a little bit for next round, in my opinion. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on that as well. So let's do a quick recap for this game. So yeah, 8 minutes in the game. Took 3 minutes. Literally, the first scrum was immediately a penalty for pulling back, for not holding the weight against. I think it was against Leinster. 8 minutes in the game. Leinster actually scores their first try. They were building a lot of pressure inside the 22. The ball came out. Prendergast actually picked the right option here to go deep, and then the ball went wide to Riku Ioane, who cuts through a gap in the middle, went in for the try. 7 points to 0. 17 minutes in the game, Leinster decided to take 3, 10 points to 0. 23 minutes in the game, another penalty, takes another 3 for a high tackle. 13 points to 0. Leinster takes the game forward. After this, Damien Willemse really started to stepping up his game from the looks of it. There was a little break down the sideline. Willemse, he set up the wingers through, and then he followed through. There was a penalty, and then 5 meters short, the Stormers decided to tap and go. A lots of pick and dry. Eventually, Andre Smith picked over for the try. 28 minutes, 13 points to 5. 33 minutes, there was a scrum penalty against Clarkson. Stormers kicked 3. The 13 points to 8, 33 minutes, just before halftime. There was a bunch of repeated penalties offside, but the Leinster team could not capitalize on that. Second half starts, there was a deliberate lock-on early on, and then suddenly Leinster is playing against 14 players again. The Stormers, there was one point where the number 9 looked like he intercepted the ball and start running 80 meters. Looks like he was free, and then only for Hugo Keenan to completely cut him down. Keenan was so much faster, just caught him. So that was a bit disappointing if you're a South African fan. Prendergast at one point tried to do a clearance kick and hit Jameson Gibson Park on the head. Boy, that was that was pretty hilarious. 51 minutes, another penalty, scrum penalty to the Stormers, and then they kicked the 3. And I didn't think there was a penalty, to be honest. I didn't think this was worthy of a penalty. In fact, I think it could have been a penalty the other way. It was just boring in. 13 points to 11. 55 minutes in the game, there was a bit of a mass scramble. Neil Ruan kicks at 50-22, and it looked like Stormers might get themselves back in the game. But then there were, there was a few minutes later, there was a dangerous clean out. It was a red card against Ackerman. And suddenly the Stormers is back in, under the pressure. The 70 minutes in the game, Leinster didn't really look like they're actually going anywhere. Just lots of pressure center field, and then Gibson Park, I think he threw the ball into the foot of Salman Morat, and then picked up the ball, ran through the gap. That was a big confusion. What happened? Ran straight through the middle and then scored under the post. 20 points to 11. And after this, the Stormer team tried a lot of crossfield kicks. Didn't really work out. Bit of a haymaker plays, and just wasn't able to connect and couldn't quite find any of the couldn't quite find the balance of the ball, I guess, in their favor to really catch themselves back into the game. So final score 20 points to 11. Let me know your thoughts. And the final will be at Croc Park in Ireland, so it'll be a different place. And let me know your thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys next week. Cheers.